Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the late start. It's all Shawn's fault. I'm kidding. It's actually not his fault. It's my fault. I had to get all the timestamps and everything copied over and written down, but that's behind the scenes crap you guys don't care about. So today we have in my opinion, exceedingly interesting
hearing
for the viewers. Now, we're a little late on it. This is from last year. However, in my opinion, it did not get the kind of coverage it deserved. There were some very, very interesting revelations during this hearing.
Yeah.
And let's bear in mind that the Pentagon, sometime in 2020, height of COVID, announced that, we've had some encounters, and they're real, and all the gaslighting that we did, telling you it was weather balloons. Well, we kind of made a mistake about that. It wasn't really weather balloons. Now, that just scratched the surface of what was revealed during this hearing. I have not watched the entirety of the hearing, but I have seen clips. And the few clips that I did see, again, I don't think it received the kind of recognition that it should based on the information that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a huge deal. This is our federal government affirming that there are objects, potentially craft, that we don't know where they came from. We don't know who they belong to, and they're far more advanced than anything we have.
Yeah.
It shouldn't panic anybody. Don't let any of this be like, oh my God. But it should open your eyes a little bit to, number one, all the government is hiding from us.
The cover up, and there's no accountability.
Exactly. The government was allowed to lie to us for years and years and years. Okay, so I want to show you guys, because they're going to reference what's called the Tic Tac video a number of times during this hearing. Why does that matter? Because I want you guys to understand what they're talking about. It's a pretty famous video. If you have any interest whatsoever in unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, or unidentified flying objects, UFOs, whatever term you want to use, you've likely seen this video. But I want to show it again just in case, because it's referenced a lot. So let's go ahead and play the clip so you guys can have it fresh in your mind. This is the Tic Tac video. So for the listeners, FLIR 1, FLIR 1, is the second of 3 U.S. military videos of an unidentified aerial phenomena. Remember, I mentioned that, UAP. That's what they were calling it now, to distance themselves from the stigma that the term UFO has acquired over the years. That has been through the official USG, that's U.S. government, declassification review process and approved for public release. Here we go. It's less than 3 minutes long. It is the only official footage that has been released that was taken during the 2004 Nimitz incident and has chain of custody documentation to ensure preservation of its original condition. In other words, this is legit. This is not something that someone took on a camcorder and said, look, it's real. This was the United States government The Nimitz aircraft carrier in 2004 acquired this footage. It has full chain of custody. It's 100% legit. Taken aboard a U.S. Navy FA-18 Super Hornet, the unaltered footage was captured by a Raytheon Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared (AT FLIR) pod, which contains the most advanced sensors and powerful tracking systems on the market. At the time, the absolute top tier technology, the best of the best. Here we go. All right, so the sensor's in infrared mode. Sensors in TV visual mode. This is the at FLIR pod display. Sensor azimuth is aimed 4 degrees right of aircraft axis. Sensor zoom is at 1.0, so it's not zoomed in. Sensor aimed 6 degrees above aircraft axis, so slightly to the right and above center. FA-18 calibrated airspeed, 252 knots, Mach 0.55. So almost half the speed of, slightly over half the speed of sounds. Hot display designator is in white, WHT mode. Hot items are white, cold items are black. In black mode, BLK, it's the reverse. Hot items are black and cold items are white. So you look down at the bottom, it's hard to see. But the altitude, 19,990 feet. Might as well say 20,000 feet. Here we go. Apologize for the static. That's coming along. I don't know if we need the audio on this.
Probably not.
We're going to turn the audio off. Weapon sensor operator changes it to TV mode. Get a better visual on the object. The object appears dark against the bright daytime sky and is clearly oblong shaped. It's sizable too. I mean, this isn't a tiny object. This is a sizable object. We're gonna see if there's no, it's just static. We're not going to worry about the audio. WSO, that's the weapons officer, changes the image back to infrared mode and then resets the zoom to 1.0. The sensor either breaks lock on the object or the object shifts rapidly, so fast that the sensor can't maintain lock. Sensor rapidly regains lock. There it is. Basically right in the middle of the screen. WSO changes zoom several times to focus on the object, zooming in and out. The object suddenly and instantaneously accelerates to the left of the view, out of view of the sensor at what appears to be an unprecedented velocity. Now, these are fighter jets. They're used to breaking the speed of sound regularly. For this to go so fast that they're talking unprecedented, this is ridiculously fast. The acceleration is so high that the sensor cannot maintain track. Okay, so bear that in mind when they talk about the Tic Tac video. That's what they're referring to. It's important because they do bring it up.
They do.
And it's yeah. So here we go. We are going to start with Rep Grotham. He's the chair of the House Oversight Committee, National Security Subcommittee.
Yep.
Right? Okay. Mr. Grotham. He is from Wisconsin. Good deal. Here we go.
Good morning and welcome to the most exciting subcommittee in Congress this week, the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border and Foreign Affairs, for discussion of unidentified anomalous phenomenon. I'd like to thank the brave military pilots and personnel, such as the witnesses on the panel today, for sharing their stories on how they've engaged UAPs, which has brought attention to this matter. Curiosity and speculation from all walks of life have generated interest in studying what UAPs are and what threats they may pose. I will say that when I was younger in school, I read a book, a 1966 book called Flying Saucers, Serious Business. And for a while, when I was little bit younger, I thought it was the most important issue out there.
Yeah.
The lack of a transparency regarding UAPs, which was one of the themes of that book.
Yeah. He lost his place. I've been
In
there
any
before,
event,
but-
it's led to interest in studying what UAPs are and what threats they pose.
Okay.
The lack of transparency regarding UAPs has fueled wild speculation and debate for decades, eroding public trust in the very institutions that are meant to serve and protect them, as is evidenced by the large number of people we have here. I also want to point out in 1966, President Gerald Ford claimed to have seen a UFO, and in
I forgot about
1969
that.
in Georgia, Jimmy Carter claimed to have seen a UFO.
Yeah.
So this has led Congress to establish entities to examine UAPs. The National Defense Authorization Act of 2022 established the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, to conduct or to coordinate efforts across the Department of Defense and other federal agencies to detect, identify, and investigate UAPs. However, AARO's budget remains classified, prohibiting meaningful oversight from Congress.
That's
In
convenient.
addition to AARO's efforts, NASA is leading an independent study on UAPs that will identify how UAP data is gathered from both civilian and government entities that can be analyzed to shed light on the topic. However, this
Okay, I'm going to pause it here real quick because, in my opinion, NASA shouldn't be involved. If you want transparency, NASA should not be involved. There's a whole lot of tinfoil hat type stuff that goes on when it comes to UFOs and stuff like that. However, there is documentation that astronauts experienced
I've heard that.
some interesting phenomena. Let's just say that. And NASA completely quashed it. So I don't think NASA should be involved in any type of anything you want actually transparent. Just saying.
despite these offices being established,
What's up?
The problem is, though, if NASA's not involved, who would you have involved?
Right. I don't know. That's a very good question. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a discussion that we could deeply get into. But the short version, I don't know. But NASA itself, I believe, is heavily compromised.
I agree with you. I just wondering who.
I don't know. I mean, it's a good,
Maybe
it's a
create
really good
something
question.
new.
It would raise some interesting points.
there lies a pressing demand for government transparency and accountability that cannot be overlooked. And that's been a problem that's been around for 50 years.
I agree. So he makes some really good points. Now we're going to move on to Representative Burchett or Burchett?
I think it's Burchett.
Burchett.
From Tennessee.
Republican from Tennessee. And that is at the 747. By the way, the name of this video, if you guys want to find it yourself, watch live. UFO congressional hearing explores unexplained aerial phenomena, apparently by PBS NewsHour. Okay, so 747 is our next clip. Easy to remember, at least.
We're all here to testify under oath for Congress. It's been so difficult to get here today. I've said, in the Baptist church, we'd say that the devil's in our way. And the devil has been in our way through this thing. We've run into roadblocks from members, from the intelligence community, the Pentagon. I proposed legislation to go in the FAA reauthorization that just said if an airline pilot has a sighting, that when he makes that report to the FAA, that it would come to Congress. But I was told that the intelligence community did not like that, and the amendment was not even heard in committee.
Now, I want to pause that because I think people need to understand the gravity of that situation, of that statement, right? He has proposed legislation for oversight. We're not even talking transparency. We're talking oversight, that if an airline pilot sees UAP, UFO, whatever you want to call it, that report should go directly to the United States Congress.
There's no reason why they shouldn't have
Congress
that.
should have
They
access
should.
to everything. But the intelligence community, we've heard that term a lot since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The intelligence community said no. Now, first of all, who the hell are they
Exactly.
to say no? And second of all, Congress is supposed to be one of the three equal branches of government. The intelligence community has entirely too much power in this country. But this man, Burchett, however you say his name, how do you think it is, you said?
It's Burchett.
This man attempted transparency, attempted to get to the root of things, and he was told, we're not even going to hear this bill, much less vote on it. That's how things are done, ladies and gentlemen. That's why our government is rotten.
I think it's time for this country to take back our country. We need to tell the folks at the Pentagon they work for us. Dadgummit, we don't work for them.
Yes, I
And that's
agree.
exactly the point. This is an issue of government transparency. We can't trust a government that does not trust its people. We're not bringing little green men or flying saucers into the hearing. Sorry to disappoint about half y'all.
Right.
We're just going to get to the facts. We're going to uncover the cover-up, and I hope this is just the beginning of many more hearings and more people coming forward about this.
Now, again, there's not going to be some big revelation that, this man sitting over here is an alien. What it does, though, is it gets to the root of the real people in charge. The intelligence community, again, has entirely too much power and runs things that they should not run. Look at the Hunter Biden laptop, just as a for example, right? 51 members of the intelligence community, right? Said this is fake. This is Russian disinformation.
And then we find out it was true.
Things? Yeah. They do not want you to know the truth.
No.
It's just that simple. They are far more interested in their particular agenda.
And
All right.
power.
What?
And power.
And power, exactly. That's their agenda via power so that they can make what happen. They make what they want to happen, I should say. Okay, so our next clip is from Representative Garcia, Democrat, from California. Oh, my goodness.
He's the ranking member.
The ranking member. So obviously, all right. And this is at the 1256, and this is a long one, to the 1835. 1256. I had it and passed it. There we go. Mr. Garcia from California. Here we go.
As our oversight body always demands. Now, it's really important that we're here in a bipartisan way to have this conversation, which really, to the heart of it, is about national security and key to the subcommittee's core purpose. This is the subcommittee on national security of the Oversight Committee.
Right.
Now, our witnesses will testify today that UAPs have posed a serious safety threat, and we must understand this. More broadly, we're dealing with real questions that get to the heart of our faith in government. Faith in our institutions, as we all know, is at an all-time low. Partisanship and alternative facts make it too easy to doubt narrative or our institutions. But this hearing will offer the public unique perspectives, building on years of reporting by both federal agencies and the independent media. Now, some of the earliest reporting on this issue was a groundbreaking 2017 New York Times report, which revealed research, as we know now, on unidentified anomalous phenomena, or as many call UFOs, by the Defense Intelligence Agency. Mr. Graves and Commander Favor's experiences with UAPs have also been documented by the public, not just by the New York Times, but CNN and many other national news outlets. Now, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has published public reports documenting UAPs, and on June 9th, 2022, NASA announced that the agency is commissioning a study to, of course, examine unidentified anomalous phenomena. Now, the sheer number of reports, whistleblowers, and stories of unidentified anomalous phenomena should raise real questions and warrant investigation and oversight.
I agree.
And that's why we are here today.
Yep.
Now, pilots have reported encounters for years. Now, because of the stigma around reporting these incidents, we still don't have a complete picture of actually what's going on, particularly as our witnesses will testify on the civilian side. And that is a real problem that we have today in the country. Mm-hmm. Now, it's very important that we show that Democrats and Republicans in Congress can come together in a bipartisan way to cut through misinformation and to look at the facts in a serious and thoughtful manner. If we are to advance oversight and public disclosure, we must also gain the broad support of the public. We will succeed getting facts out to the public faster if there is a broad public support as part of the process. Now, I understand fully the Department of Defense is hesitant to share information that could also undermine our national security by revealing information on the capabilities of our own aircraft, our sensors, and other sensitive material. At the same time, many people believe that we're withholding information from them, and that is dangerous also.
Yes.
I believe in openness and transparency. That is also the role of Congress. And I want to trust that the American people will be able to weigh the evidence and make up their own minds. Now, we have incidents where sensors, sometimes even multiple types of sensors, detect things that we cannot explain. UAPs, whatever they may pose a serious threat to our military or civilian aircraft, and that must be understood. Now, my career and training as a longtime and career educator and teacher and researcher tell me that we should never rule anything out. We know that our space, of course, is vast and undiscovered. Mm-hmm. I also want to note that Mr. Shawn Kirkpatrick, director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the component of the DoD office that investigates UAP data, has testified before the Senate this year that his unit has found no evidence of extraterrestrial activity. NASA has also stated they don't have evidence of extraterrestrial life either, and we've heard this, of course, from some of our government agencies. And we should remind viewers and witnesses, which I think is really important, that we also cannot share classified information in public settings. But questions, of course, remain that people want to see data and information for themselves. The enormous interest in the hearing today underscores the importance of a fair and open look at the evidence from witnesses who can share their unique perspectives. Now, I know I certainly have a lot of questions, and I know that all the members of our committee do as well. We should come to this hearing with an open mind, and we should not let our existing ideas restrict us on either side. I hear over and over from many agencies the stigma around reporting and investigating UAPs prevents us from getting real answers.
True.
We know that whistleblowers have reported harassment, intimidation, or stigma as well, and this is not acceptable. If people can't report incidents which would have national security or safety implications, then that also has serious consequences for us. As a ranking member of this subcommittee, I know my job would be completely impossible if whistleblowers or others feel intimidated to come before this committee. We can't be afraid of asking questions, and we can't be afraid of the truth. I'm proud to say that this hearing builds upon bipartisan work by members of the House and Senate dating many years back, which has sought to increase awareness within the Department of Defense and to mandate more of Congress of UAPs. We know the Senate is taking up an amendment to their defense authorization bill, which will create a commission with broad declassification authority, and we should all agree that that is an important step. Members of both...
I'm going to pause it here just real quick. Do you happen to know the status of that so-called committee that they were creating?
It never was. I don't think it
never happened, did it?
It never happened.
Imagine that.
Parties and senior officials in multiple administrations have taken an interest in this issue, and we're proud to carry and build that confidence in the American people. This hearing will also not be the end of this discussion, but a new chapter and start to years and years of work that many folks, both in the public and within government, have been working on. We should encourage more reporting, not less, on UAPs. The more we understand, the safer we will be. We will hear testimony from witnesses today with a long record of service to the American people and with subject matter expertise. Our witnesses have a unique opportunity to share their perspective, insights, and their experiences with the American people. And I encourage all of my colleagues to engage with these difficult questions with an open mind and to follow the facts on behalf of our country.
Okay, so he made some great points. He really did. Excellent inclusion. I find it unfortunate that when we have people from both the right and the left that both say we want more transparency, and yet we continue to face the same walls, it's very, very frustrating.
It is.
I mean, it's unfortunate. And again, it shows how much power the intelligence community has. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the swearing in of witnesses, the introduction and swearing in. That's at 2244. And we're essentially going to run through this. All right, so here we go. This is interesting, in my opinion.
Right, now I'd like to introduce our witnesses. Our first witness is Lieutenant Ryan Graves. He's the Executive Director of Americans for Safe Aerospace. Lieutenant Graves is also a former U.S. Navy F-18 pilot with his own UAP experience. The next witness, David Grush, is a former senior intelligence officer with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and was a senior technical advisor for UAP issues. And finally, retired Navy Commander David Fravor, squadron leader who worked as a naval aviator for 18 years. Mr. Fravor has his own UAP experience known as the TikTok event. I look forward to hearing from all three of you today. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that all the witnesses answered in the affirmative. You may be seated.
Okay, so all of the witnesses swore to tell the truth. Our first, let's see here. I'll make sure I get this right. The first one is Ryan Graves, former F-18 pilot. He had his own experience, UAP, UFO, whatever. And I mean, decades he flew.
We appreciate you all being here today and look forward to your testimony. I'll remind the witnesses that we have read your written statements and they will appear in full in the hearing record. Please try to limit your oral statements to 5 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it's on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, it'll turn yellow, and the red light, when that comes on, it tells you your 5 minutes have expired. I'll now recognize Mr. Graves for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay.
Thank you. Chairman Grothman, Ranking Member Garcia, distinguished members of the House Oversight Subcommittee on National Security, Representatives Burchett and Luna. My name is Ryan Fobbs Graves, and I'm a former F-18 pilot with a decade of service in the U.S. Navy, including 2 deployments in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Inherent Resolve. I have experienced advanced UAP firsthand, and I'm here to voice the concerns of more than 30 commercial aircrew and military veterans who have confided their similar encounters with me. Today, I would like to highlight 3 critical issues that demand our action.
I mean, did you guys catch that? 30 additional personnel who had their own experiences who confided in this man because he was brave enough to come forward and say what he experienced. There is this absolute current, just like military members find it difficult to get treatment for PTSD or any sort of mental disorder because there's a stigma associated with it. It's the same thing with UAP/UFOs. Oh, if you say you saw a UFO, you're a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, crazy person. This is a man with over a decade of experience in the really the top fighters that we had. This was, his experience was back in 2008 or something. I mean, the F-18 Hornet, it's a badass jet, dude. I mean, it can still hold its own against jets around the world.
As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. The stigma attached to UAP is real and powerful and challenges national security.
Yeah.
It silences commercial pilots who fear professional repercussions, discourages witnesses, and is only compounded by recent government claims questioning the credibility of eyewitness testimony.
Yep.
Parts of our government are aware of more about UAP than they let on, but excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden. Since 2021, all UAP videos are classified as secret or above. This level of secrecy not only impedes our understanding, but fuels speculation and mistrust.
I agree with that.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers. And I was stationed at NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. At first, we assumed they were radar errors, but soon we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple onboard sensors, including infrared systems, eventually through visual ID. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, 2 F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter.
Wow.
The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings.
Imagine that.
Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Recognizing
That is huge.
that happens a lot.
That is massive. That shows how often these are happening. That's part of the pre-flight briefing.
the need for action and answers, I founded Americans for Safe Aerospace. The organization has since become a haven for UAP witnesses who were previously unspoken due to the absence of a safe intake process. More than 30 witnesses have come forward, and almost 5,000 Americans have joined us in the fight for transparency at safeaerospace.org. The majority of witnesses are commercial pilots at major airlines. Often, they are veterans with decades of flying experience. Pilots are reporting UAP at altitudes that appear above them at 40,000 feet, potentially in low Earth orbit or in the gray zone below the Kármán line, making inexplainable maneuvers like right-hand turns and retrograde orbits or J-hooks. Sometimes these reports are reoccurring, with numerous recent sightings north of Hawaii and in the North Atlantic. Other veterans are also coming forward to us regarding UAP encounters in our airspace and oceans. The most compelling involve observations of UAP by multiple witnesses and sensor systems. I believe these accounts are only scratching the surface, and more will share their experiences once it is safe to do so.
Now, that is very, very interesting, because that's something that a lot of people kind of leave out, right? We hear about the UAPs, UFOs over major cities when people get a shaky, terrible cell phone video of it. Bear in mind, most of these are moving quite quickly. He's talking about the pilots over land and the oceans, including north of Hawaii. Apparently, that's a hot spot for activity. I've heard a number of very interesting stories when it comes to our oceans and these UAPs. Things coming out of the water, things going in the water.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot.
A lot of the ocean hasn't been explored yet.
That's it exactly, right?
Yeah.
And this could start a whole other video, but I do find it interesting how little of our ocean has been explored.
That's
when
true.
we're so eager to go to Mars.
That's a good point.
I'm not opposed to going to Mars, don't get me wrong, but why so little focus on truly exploring the depths of our planet?
That's a good point.
Almost as if they know what's down there. I'm just saying.
In closing, I recognize the skepticism surrounding this topic. If
Or-
everyone could see the sensor and video data I witnessed,
Or we don't have the technology yet to.
And that's a possibility, right? People have said, well, it's far harder to create something that's resists pressure enough to go down that far, right? Okay, maybe that's the case. However, with the advent of robotics, remote controlled drones, things like that, that excuse is getting flimsier, in my opinion.
national commerce this topic. If everyone could see the sensor and video data I witnessed, our national conversation would change. I urge us to put aside stigma and address the security and safety issue this topic represents. If UAP are foreign drones, it is an urgent national security problem. If it is something else, it is an issue for science. In either case, unidentified objects are concerned for flight safety.
Yeah.
The American people deserve to know what is happening in our skies. It is long overdue. Thank you.
And I agree with that.
Yep.
It is long overdue for the American people to learn. Okay, I personally am not panicked about
No,
UFOs
I'm not either.
or aliens or any of that. It doesn't bother me, right? If these, for example, if these UAPs are extraterrestrial in origin, they've been happening for decades.
Yeah.
Suddenly revealing to the public, okay, yeah, we know what they really are, or at minimum, we acknowledge what they really are. As you saw in 2020 when the Pentagon went, yeah, these are real. The public went, we knew that. We knew that. We've been waiting for you to stop denying it, basically. All right, the next witness is David Grush, former intel officer. Hardcore.
Mr. Grush?
Grush.
Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important issue, and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force, both active duty, Air National Guard, and Reserve at the rank of major, and most recently from 2021 to 2023, at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel.
Oh.
I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF, and eventually, once it was established, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO. I became a whistleblower through a PPD-19 urgent concern filing in May 2022 with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Following concerning reports from multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals that the U.S. government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight with regards to UAPs.
Now, they've already, I wholeheartedly agree with everything he just said. The intel community is controlling all the information on this. We already heard earlier where the man tried to introduce legislation, given a little bit of transparency or at minimum accountability to Congress. Forget transparency, just to Congress, and it was blocked.
My testimony is based on information I've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to this country.
What's that?
You got a comment?
Oh, do we?
No?
No. Might be a private message.
Okay.
Many of whom also have shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony to myself and my various colleagues. I have taken every step I can to corroborate this evidence over a period of 4 years while I was with the UAP task force and do my due diligence on the individual sharing it. This is because of these steps, I believe strongly in the importance of bringing this information before you. I am driven by a commitment of both to truth and transparency, rooted in our inherent duty to uphold the United States Constitution and protect the American people. I'm asking Congress to hold our government to this standard and thoroughly investigate these claims. But as I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I've been told them. In the U.S. Air Force, in my National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, reservist capacity, I was a member of the UAP Task Force from 2019 to 2021. I served at the NRO Operations Center on the Director's Briefing staff, which included the coordination of the Presidential Daily Brief and supporting a variety of contingency operations, which I was the Reserve Intelligence Division Chief backup. Right. In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs, also known as SAPs and CAPs, we needed to satisfy our congressionally mandated mission, and we were direct report at the time to the DepSecDef. At the time,
DepSecDef, Deputy Secretary of Defense, I believe.
Due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied.
Yeah, let that sink in for just a moment. This man who has knowledge, direct knowledge of this stuff, this isn't hearsay, this is him directly reporting that there is a decades-long crash retrieval program. In other words, Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
Are they still going to continue to tell us Roswell was a weather balloon? Do you think?
Probably.
The
They
intel
probably
community
still,
would
yeah.
want that, absolutely.
denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency.
They went after him hard.
Yeah.
You guys should definitely read up the history of David Grush and learn what they did to him. They don't cover it really much here. There's a little bit, I think, where
They
somebody
did a
brings it
little
up.
bit.
A little bit. But they put him through hell.
Thank you, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Commander Fravor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Congressmen, Congresswomen.
Fravor retired.
I want to first thank you for the invitation to speak to the committee on the UAP topic that's been in the news for the past 6 years and seems to be continuing to gain momentum. As you know, my name is David Fravor. I'm a retired commander in the United States Navy. In 2004, I was a commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the world-famous Black Aces. We were attached to Carrier Wing 11, stationed on board the USS Nimitz, and had begun a 2-month workup cycle off the coast of California. On this day, we were scheduled for a 2v2 air-to-air training with the USS Princeton as our control. When we launched off Nimitz, my wingman was joining up. We were told that the training was going to be suspended and we were going to proceed with real-world tasking. As we proceeded to the west, the air controller was counting down the range to an object that we were going to, and we were unaware of what we were going to see when we arrived. The controller told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up, for those who don't.
80,000 feet is higher, I believe, than even the SR-71 Blackbird could fly.
I think so.
Can you double check the maximum altitude of the SR-71 Blackbird? In the meantime, so it came down from 80,000 feet, shot down to 20,000, would hang out for hours, and then shoot directly back up to over 80,000 feet. That is incredible. Incredible. There is, to my knowledge, we have no crafts that can do that.
Maximum altitude of what was it?
80,000 feet.
What can go?
Yeah, what can fly at 80,000 feet? Or you could just look up the maximum altitude of the SR-71 Blackbird. Obviously, this is what they tell the public. We're not going to get
85,000 feet.
Okay, so it can go. SR-71, just so you know, is like the highest flying plane we've ever had. It's almost in space. It's the closest thing to a space plane that we have or ever had. And this thing shot up and down, no problem.
Realize, but descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up, for those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
Yeah, that's.
We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet, and the controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some whitewater off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in a large blue ocean. All four of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down and saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees, nose low, where the tic-tac, or we considered 270 degrees to where, and we went nose low to where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was about 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingman, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the whitewater was at, and it was gone also. So as you started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute." You can calculate the speed. We returned to Nimitz. We were taking off our gear. We were talking to one of my crews that was getting ready to launch. We mentioned it to them, and they went out and luckily got the video that you see, that 90-second video. What you don't see is the radar tape that was never released, and we don't know where it's at, of the active jamming that the object put on an APG-73 radar, and I can get into modes later if you're interested. What is shocking to us is that the incident was never investigated. None of my crew were ever questioned. Tapes were never taken, and after a couple days, it turned into a great story with friends. It wasn't until 2009 until Jay Stratton had contacted me to investigate. Unbeknownst to all, he was part of the ATIP program in the Pentagon led by Lou Elizondo. And there was an official report that came out that's now on the internet. Years later, I was contacted by the other pilot, Alex Dietrich, and asked if I'd been contacted, and I said no, but I'm willing to talk. I was contacted by Mr. Elizondo, and we talked for a short period of time, and he said we'd be in contact. A few weeks after that, I was made aware that Lou had left the Pentagon in protest and joined forces with Tom DeLonge, Chris Mellon, Steve Justice, and others to form Two Stars Academy, an organization that pressed the issue with leading industry experts and U.S. government officials. They worked with Leslie Keene, who is present today, Ralph Blumenthal, and Helene Cooper to publish the articles in the New York Times 2017 New York Times. And it removed the stigma on the topic of UFOs, which is why we're here today. Those articles open the door for the government and public that cannot be closed. It has led to an interest from our elected officials who are not focused on little green men, but figuring out where these craft are, where they from, the technology they possess, how do they operate. It also led to the Whistleblower Protection Act and the NDAA. There are multiple witnesses coming forward to say that have firsthand knowledge, and Mr. Grush just covered that. What concerns me is that there's no oversight from our elected officials on anything associated with our government processing or working on craft. Believe it, not from this world. This issue is not a full public disclosure that could undermine national security, but it is about ensuring that our system of checks and balances works across all work done in the government using taxpayer funds. Relative to government programs, even unacknowledged WAVE programs have some level of oversight by the appropriate committee members in the House and Senate. And this work that is said to be occurring from whistleblower testimonies should not be exempt. In closing, I would like to say that the Tic Tac object we engaged in 2004 was far superior to anything that we had on time, have today, or are looking to develop in the next 10 years. If we in fact have programs that possess this technology, it needs to have oversight from those people that the citizens of this great country elected in office to represent what is best for the United States and best for the citizens. I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
I mean, that's a lot.
That's
a whole lot to unpack. I mean, I'm not gonna get into it. You heard the man, but I do want everyone to understand exactly what that means. It means that there is an unelected bureaucracy, whether that's the intel community, whether that's the shadow government, whether that's the cabal, deep state, call them whatever you want. Doesn't matter. The function's the same. Unelected individuals that actually control the flow of information. That's
the
a
deep
problem.
state.
Yeah, it is. It's a deep state. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So our next clip, that's the witnesses. I think it was important for us to hear exactly what they said in their own words to the United States Congress. Our next clip is at the 40:05 to 43:34. It's Mr. Grotham again, Republican, Wisconsin.
I'll give you a follow-up on that. Assuming that there are reasons why not all this should be made public, this has been around for a long period of time. Can any of the three of you think of any reason why anything related to UAPs, say 15 years and back, should not be immediately made public?
I think one of it is acknowledging a vulnerability, both from a collection and I'll just say a countermeasure perspective. So it's that we haven't cracked for many years. Yeah.
Even say 20 years back. Is there any reason why, when you go back that far, things shouldn't be made public?
Unless it shows a specific national security vulnerability as it relates to a weakness in a particular defense system.
Okay, Mr. Frey.
I do want to point out, now this is a guy who's a whistleblower. He came forward. He wants to tell the truth. But even he is willing to admit that there are certain things that might show a vulnerability. We're weak here kind of thing. His first thought isn't telling the public everything. His first thought is the safety of this country and the people in it. Every time this guy opens his mouth, he gets a little more believable as far as I'm concerned.
Favor, the TikTok incident that you were engaged occurred in 2004. What kind of reporting took place after that incident?
None. We had a standard debrief where the backseaters went down to our carrier intel center and briefed what had happened, and that was it. No one else talked to us, and I was in the top 20 in the battle group. No one came. The captain was aware, the admiral was aware, nothing was done.
Your commanding officers provide any sort of justification?
No, because I was the commanding officer of the squadron, so no.
Was this incident the only UAP event that you encountered while you were a pilot?
Yes, it was.
Okay. This is for any one of you. Based off of each of your experiences and observations, do you believe UAPs pose a potential threat to our national security?
I'll do it.
Yes, and here's why. The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had, and you could put that anywhere. If you had one, you captured one, you reverse engineered it, you got it to work, you're talking something that can go into space, go someplace, drop down in a matter of seconds, do whatever it wants, and leave, and there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing.
Okay. You two?
Well,
I mean, think about that for a moment. That's concerning from a defense perspective. That's extremely concerning. And yeah, it does represent a national security risk. So this committee should have direct oversight over that. But again, they don't.
No.
I would also like to add, from a commercial aviation and military aviation perspective, we deal with uncertainty in our operating space as a matter of our professional actions. Sure. Identifying friend from foe is very important to us. Mm-hmm. And so when we have unidentified targets and we continue to ignore those due to a stigma or a fear of what it could be, that's an opening that our adversaries can take advantage of.
What steps should be taken to better understand and respond to UAP encounters in the interest of national security?
There needs to be a location where this information is centralized for processing, and there needs to be a two-way communication loop so the operators on the front end have a feedback and can get best practices on how to process information, what to do, and to ensure that their reporting is being listened to. Right now, there is not a lot of back and forth.
Mr. Grush, in your complaint to the Intelligence Community Inspector General, you claim that you believe information is being hidden. What kind of information do you think was hidden, and do you think it should remain hidden?
Yes, I can speak to that very briefly in an unclassified manner. As you know, the preponderance of my complaint was classified to the intelligence communities. Both material acquisition and exploitation activity, also baselining the UAPs, but not sharing it with, intelligence professionals that are actually doing step briefs to pilots, that kind of information. Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
He's talking about we're actually acquiring technologies, reverse engineering, and so we have an understanding of this, and we're not sharing that information with the pilots, which means pilots could potentially do something that would either be perceived as hostile or cause potentially a crash. These are real concerns, I believe. Okay, so our next clip is from Representative Garcia. That's the ranking member, Democrat from California. That's 4758 to 4932.
One of the things that I found fascinating in our discussion, Mr. Graves, last night as well, is that you both described UAPs and formations and the way they are observed in space or in our air, and the way that they move is essentially ways in which current technology or aircraft that we know of are unable to actually function or move. And so will you just, for the public record, again, once again, briefly, just either describe or note that aircraft that are being witnessed, particularly by the 30 folks that you're working with, are essentially outside the scope of anything that we know of today and the technology we have today. Mr. Graves, Mr. Fravor?
Yes, the objects that are being seen by commercial pilots are performing maneuvers that are unexplainable due to our current understanding of our technology and our capabilities as a country. And that applies for the military as well.
Mr. Ferrer?
Yeah, I concur with that. We have nothing that can stop in midair and go the other direction, nor do we have anything that can, like in our situation, come down from space, hang out for 3 hours, and go back up.
Thank you. My last question, and sometimes I know that you have also said some of these answers in the past, but we're trying to get them on the public record as well, which is really important. Mr. Gresh, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And
40
Yeah.
witnesses. He interviewed 40 witnesses who said, yes, we have it. Yes, we have it.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's crazy. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
Thank you. And
Once again, he did it properly.
Yeah.
I mean, he followed protocol. He followed, except that so-called protocol is to keep your mouth shut. He said, this is a security threat to this country. It is necessary for me to speak up. And he went through his reporting channels. He didn't just go to the New York Times and say, look, we have them. Here's where they are. He reported to the Inspector General with reports, with eyewitness accounts, and said, here, go there and look. That's where one of them is, or two of them, or whatever. He said he knows where they all are.
Uh-huh.
Oh, my God, man. Okay. Our next one is Burchett, representative from Tennessee. And if you guys watched all of this, fantastic. Great. If you haven't, I don't know about you, but I've seen little clips of like a soundbite here or a soundbite there, right? Forbes is really good for that.
Yeah.
They'll have the little, little 5-minute video showing you this, and then that's it. That's all you see. I was shocked that this didn't get more press.
It got a little bit, but it didn't get a lot.
But not the level that, I mean, the bombshells that are being revealed here. I'll tell you what, me personally, I'm really looking forward to the Senate hearing because Senator Blackburn, I think her name, Marsha
Senator
Blackburn,
from Tennessee.
Yeah, she said every American needs to watch this. Every American needs to pay attention to what was said in this because my understanding is she made it perfectly clear. Someone in this, I haven't seen it yet. I need to, but she made it clear that this is not extraterrestrial. This is interdimensional.
I've heard that.
There's actually allegedly during the Senate hearing, a significant amount of evidence that points to that.
I'll have to look it up. I don't remember the Senate hearing, but I'll look into it.
Yeah, me too. Again, it didn't get much press.
No.
Especially the Senate hearing. It's like, interestingly enough, the more that comes out, New York Times back in 2017 was more than happy to publish the initial report about, whistleblowers and UFOs and the Tic Tac and all that, right? But interestingly enough, these major news organizations, the more that gets revealed, the less they are covering it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it seems to me. Anyway, our next clip is at the 50-minute mark exactly. 50 to 55:03. Burchett from Tennessee.
Mr. Graves, again, I'd like to know, how do you know that these were not our aircraft?
It's a good question.
Some of the behaviors that we saw in a working area, we would see these objects being at 0.0 Mach, that's zero airspeed, over certain pieces of the ground. So what that means, just like a river, if you throw a bobber in, it's going to float downstream. These objects were staying completely stationary in Category 4 hurricane winds. These same objects would then accelerate to supersonic speeds, 1.1, 1.2 Mach, and they would do so in very erratic and quick behaviors that I don't have an explanation for.
Okay.
Hurricane force winds, and it's just hovering. It's just staying still. Yeah, here's the thing, right? Maybe we do have the technology. If we do, then it's a division that is not known by Congress, not known by our best and brightest.
And
That
it's
should
possible.
concern every American.
And it's possible.
It is. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying these are from outer space. I have no idea where.
No,
they're
I don't
from.
either.
I have no clue. I tend to listen to the guys who know what they're talking about, like this man here, Mr. Graves. Sounds like he kind of knows what he's talking about. And if he tells me, and all the experience that I have flying jets and dealing with America's greatest technology, I've never come across anything that can do this. Well, okay. So either someone else, whether that's another country, another moon, whatever, has this technology, or another division of our government has this technology. And I'm not sure which is more concerning.
Yeah, they're both really concerning.
They really are.
Either or.
Yeah. I've heard about like secret space programs and teleportation and all this other stuff that I have no idea if it's legit or not. But I'll say this. If any of that, particularly if there's a special division of the government that has access to these types of technologies and they're not sharing it with our armed forces, well, what are you doing with it?
Good point.
Like, what is the purpose of this?
Have you spoken to commercial and military pilots that have seen these off of our East Coast?
I have.
Okay.
Washington,
Mr.
D.C.,
Favor.
New York.
I noticed that in the Tic Tac video, it's Tic Tac like the candy, not TikTok like the Chinese Communist app.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. I just want to make that because my daughter corrected me on that and called me a boomer and said, "Hey, boomer," and I said, "No, baby, it's Tic Tac like the candy. You're gonna have to just look it up." And but now I would also like to say today is a day of many firsts. It's a miracle that we're having this.
I don't know who this guy is right here with the blue tie. To looking at him, it's to his left, but to the right of him from our perspective. But he didn't look amused at all. Everyone else kind of smiled or, at least pretended to laugh. This guy here, no, not amused, not even a little. Like watch.
Oh, I didn't even notice it.
So I like to say today is a day of many. I have to
All
just
right,
call me a boomer and say, "Hey, boomer," and I said, "No, baby, it's Tic Tac like the candy. You're gonna have to just look it up." And but now I would also like to say
Yeah,
today is
Luna's
a
laughing.
day of many firsts.
Yeah, Luna laughs. This guy smiles. This guy's like, shut up.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he has much of a sense of humor. Or maybe he's his staffer and heard him practicing this.
That could be.
And I'm just throwing out possibilities.
That's-
and it's like, oh, I'm so sick of this joke.
It's a miracle that we're having this
Probably.
meeting, and it's also a miracle that my wife has put up with me for 9 years today. Today is my anniversary, so I want to tell my wife happy anniversary and that I love her very much. As she likes to say, this 9 years have been the best 2 years of her life. So thank you.
Yeah, he didn't think that was funny either.
Mr.
No.
Favor,
No, he's
That's
not.
probably
what
a staffer.
astonished you the most about the flight capabilities of these Tic Tac, very briefly?
The performance, absolute performance. It was,
And you're not aware of any other objects that anybody in the world has in this world that has those capabilities?
no, I think it's far beyond actually our material science that we currently possess.
Are you aware of any other reconnaissance platforms that have tracked or recorded the Tic Tac's maneuvers, maybe the NORAD system or any of the others?
I am not.
Okay. Mr. Grush.
That's interesting, because for those of you who aren't aware, NORAD stands for North American Air Defense. NORAD is our early warning system for Soviet ICBMs. It was, established in the 80s. It used to be Strategic Air Command, but now it's NORAD, right? I was very into the potential of nuclear war when I was a kid. I mean, I was an 80s kid, man. Terminator 2, war games. These were, facts of life. So I learned all that stuff. NORAD's supposed to have the most advanced imaging system so that we know if we're under attack. He's saying, no, NORAD doesn't pick this up. We just got this technology on these birds, and now we can see them. So how long have they been there? How long have they been there unnoticed?
Good question.
Thank you for being here, brother. Thank you all very much. Have you faced any retaliation or reprisals for any of your testimony or anything on these lines?
Yeah, I have to be careful what I say in detail because there is an open whistleblower reprisal investigation on my behalf, and I don't want to compromise that investigation by providing anything that may help provide somebody information. But it was very brutal and very unfortunate, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally, to be quite frank. You know?
It's very unfortunate. As they say, when you're over the target, that's when they do the most firing at you. Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes.
That was quick.
Personally.
Have anyone been murdered that you would think that you know of or have heard of, I guess?
I have to be careful asking that question. I directed people with that knowledge.
It's not a no.
No, that's not a no.
He did not go no, but he went, I have to be careful answering that question because he has an active whistleblower reprisal investigation. In other words, they put the smackdown on him and he's suing the shit out of them. Good, because there's supposed to be protections for people.
Or have heard of, I guess?
I have to be careful asking that question. I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities.
Maybe in a, if we could get in a confidential area SCIF, we could talk about that. But unfortunately, we were denied access to the SCIF, and that's very unfortunate in this scenario.
Think about that again, right? The Congressional Oversight for National Security, right?
Yep.
House Oversight Committee, National Security Subcommittee was denied access to a SCIF, S-C-I-F, I think it's 1F, Secure Compartmentalized Information something. But this is an area that's completely secure, completely blocked down. No phones are allowed. No electronics are allowed. Like, you have to go through full searches and wands and the whole 9 yards to get in there. It's not connected to outside internet or anything like that, right? Rock solid security. They were told, no, you can't use that.
Wow.
What?
Mr. Favor, do you believe that you witnessed an additional object under the water in relation to your encounter?
I will say we did not see an object. There was something there to cause the whitewater, and when we turned around, it was gone. So there was something there that obviously moved.
Okay, it was not the same object though that you were looking at, correct?
No, we actually joked that the Tic Tac was communicating with something when we came back, and because the whitewater disappeared.
We were in another instance. We're told about the capabilities of a jamming during viewing of when there were some people chasing some of these objects. Did you experience any of that jamming or interrupting your radar or weapons system?
My crew that launched after we landed experienced significant jamming to the APG-73 radar, which was what we had on board, which is a mechanically scanned, very high-end system prior to the APG-79. And yes, it did pretty much everything you could do: range, velocity, aspect, and then it spit the lock, and the targeting pod is passive. That's what we were able to get the video on.
I'm about to run out of time, but are you aware of any of our enemies that have that capability?
No.
Okay. I would also like to note for the record that, like George Knapp breaking Area 51, he's the reason I knew about that. And the reason I know about the Tic Tacs is Leslie Keene from New York Times article, and I would encourage everybody to read that.
It's one of the few things that the Times has produced in the last 20 or so years that I would say, yeah, worth reading. Absolutely. Our next clip goes directly into it, and that is Representative Raskin again, Democrat Maryland, 5504 to the 1 hour, 20-second mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back to you for no time.
Very good. Mr. Raskin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Graves, you reported UAP encounters during...
There is a very small, in my opinion, number of reporters and photographers compared to the normal number that you see for like budget hearings and stuff like that.
Supreme
It's
Court
like,
justice.
yeah, 1, 2,
Nom-
3, 4, 5,
confirmation.
6, 7.
Yeah, there's usually more.
Yeah, there's usually more. You've watched a lot of these hearings. Again,
Interesting.
Training flights, I think, and have since come forward to warn the Pentagon that these encounters may be putting pilots at risk. My first question is, you've identified these as taking place on the East Coast. Is it just on the East Coast where these encounters have been reported?
No, since the events initially occurred, I've learned that the objects have been detected essentially where all operations, Navy operations are being conducted across the world. And that's from the Ultimate Anomaly Resolutions Office reporting.
everywhere the U.S. Navy operates, which is pretty much the entirety of our oceans, they're seeing these. That's not concerning at all.
All right, can you describe your experience after you decided to come forward and go public with your experience?
Certainly. Like many others, in 2017, I saw the New York Times article come out as well. And for me, it was special because I recognized the voices on the video. I recognized the video itself. I had seen it when it was taken. I'd seen it when it was debriefed. And so that was kind of shook me because I realized that this problem was still ongoing. And so I reached out to colleagues back on the East Coast and realized that this was still a safety risk that they were dealing with, that they had essentially hit a wall with how they could move forward on this conversation. It was at that point when I decided to try to move the conversation forward myself.
Are there common characteristics to the UAPs that have been cited by different pilots? And can you describe what the convergence of descriptions is?
Certainly. We were primarily seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of a clear sphere.
I'm sorry, dark gray or black cubes?
Yes, inside of a clear sphere, where the apex or tips of the cube were touching the inside of that sphere. And that was primarily what was being reported when we were able to gain a visual tally of these objects. And that occurred over almost 8 years. And as far as I know, it's still occurring.
So I take it that you're arguing what we need is real transparency in a reporting system so we can get some clarity on what's going on out there, because there are many pilots in your situation, but we should have a way of developing a systematic inventory of all of such encounters. Is that right?
Yes, and I think we need both transparency and the reporting. We have the reporting, but we need to make sure that information can be promulgated to commercial aviation as well as the rest of the populace.
Mr. Grush, what about you? What was your experience after you came forward?
Well, it's only been about 2 months or so. So I guess my experience has been overwhelming support from former colleagues of mine that have privately messaged me, and I do appreciate that. But I do have knowledge of active planned reprisal activity against myself and other colleagues, and it's very, very upsetting to me.
Yeah,
Coming from where?
And again, we're supposed to have whistleblower protection.
Yeah.
Supposed to.
Where?
Colleagues, and it's very, very upsetting to me.
Coming from where?
Certain senior leadership at previous agencies I was associated with. And that's all I'll say publicly, but I can provide more details in a closed environment.
Okay. Well, I hope you understand that there would be bipartisan rejection of any attempt to vilify, demonize, or engage in other reprisals against our witnesses and people who are telling the truth from their perspective.
At least publicly.
Yeah.
In front of the cameras, there would be.
Yeah, behind the scenes, who knows?
Who knows what's happening behind the scenes? Exactly.
Yeah, there were certain colleagues of mine that were brutally administratively attacked, and it actually makes me very upset as a leader to see that happen to other coworkers and actually superiors of mine over the last 3 years.
How do you account for that response? That seems like a bizarre response.
I call it administrative terrorism. That's their quiver, their tool in the toolbox to silence people, especially, the career government service cares about their career, cares about their clearance, their reputation to climb the ladder. And
Unelected bureaucrats.
Yeah.
when you threaten that career path, a lot of people back off. But I'm here to represent those people. So.
Mr. Fravor, what about you? What has your experience been since you've come forward with your perspective on this?
Actually, I've been treated very well. And the 6 people that were involved, myself included, all of them have or will be retiring from the military as 05s or 06s. And all my friends that are very senior, 3 and 4 stars, I've talked to them. They believe, they understand there's a problem. But no, I was actually treated really well.
And what is your general interpretation of these phenomena, or what is your current thinking of trying to make sense of them?
Well, I'll say, I'm not like a UFO fanatic. It's not me. But I will tell you that what we saw with 4 sets of eyes over a 5-minute period, still, there's nothing, we have nothing close to it. It was amazing to see. I told my buddy I wanted to fly it, but yeah, it's just an incredible technology.
That's a pilot. That's a pilot response, right? Oh, dude, I want to fly that.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'll yield back to you.
Okay, so, man, oh man, our next individual, and it's actually pretty short, Representative Luna from Florida, coming up right now.
Thanks. On to Ms. Luna.
Mr. Grush, in speaking to you yesterday, I just wanted to follow up on Representative Raskin's questions. In the last couple of years, have you had incidences that have caused you to be in fear for your life for addressing these issues?
Yes, personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to note that he's coming forward in fear of his life. To put in perspective, if they were really not scared about this information coming out, why would someone be intimidated like that?
Exactly.
It's an excellent point. It's what I've been saying. Like, there are people, wherever they are in the administrative state, that do not want this information out there.
No.
All right. Our next clip is from the 10532 to 11018, Representative Maskowitz, Democrat from Florida. 10532.
Mr. Moskowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, let's talk about the laws of physics for a second.
Okay.
Mr. Graves and Commander Favor, I heard you talk about speed. When those objects broke the sound barrier, did they make a sonic boom?
I was in a jet. You can't hear anything. It's kind of loud in there.
Yeah, you're not able to actually personally tell within the vehicle. I will say the objects that we were seeing, they were spherical, and they were observed up to Mach 2, which is a very non-aerodynamic shape.
What about G-forces? Let's talk about G-forces of those vehicles. Could a human survive those G-forces with known technology today?
No.
No, not for the acceleration rates that we observed.
Okay. What about what they look like? How close did you get? Did you see a seam or a rivet or a section? And what I mean is, obviously, the jets you're flying have all those things. Did these objects have those?
Do you want to go, Ryan?
I didn't have the detail to be able to tell that.
So we got within a half mile at Tic Tac, which people say that's pretty far, but in airplanes, that's actually relatively close.
Yeah.
No, it was perfectly white, smooth, no windows. Although when we did take the original FLIR video that is out there, when you put it on a big screen, it actually had 2 little objects that came out of the bottom of it. But other than that, no windows, no seams, no nothing.
Mr. Grush, as a result,
Interesting, because I haven't seen it on a really big screen, but interesting. That tells me that maybe I want to try to find a really massive screen so that I can see. I'm sure there's something out there that points it out. I'll see if I can look it up. Remind me.
Okay.
result of your previous government work, have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself of non-human origin craft?
Yes, I personally interviewed those individuals.
Mr. Grush, as a result of your previous government work, have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself about ATs, advanced technologies that the U.S. government has?
Based on conventional advanced tech, I was briefed to the preponderance of the Defense Department's both space and aerospace compartmented programs, yeah.
Do you have knowledge or do you have reason to believe that there are programs in the advanced tech space that are unsanctioned?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you say that they're above congressional oversight, what do you mean?
Complicated question. So there's, some, I would call it abuse here. So congressional oversight of conventional special access programs. So I'll use Title 10, so DOD as an example, right? So 10 U.S. Code Section 119 discusses congressional oversight of SAPs, discusses the DepSecDef's ability to waive congressional reporting. However, the Gang of Eight is at least supposed to be notified if a waived or waived bigoted unacknowledged SAP is created, and that's public law.
Well, so that
SAP is Special Access Program. That's the
Okay.
things that they talk about. They're like, Black Ops this and, undercover that. All these, you guys ever seen Independence Day? Have you seen Independence Day?
I have seen Independence
Okay.
Day.
Yay, a movie you've seen. Okay, so look, there's a part in Independence Day where the goofy scientist guy, Jeff Goldblum's character, right? His dad,
Okay.
right? The old man, okay? Talks about you don't really think they spend $50,000 on a screwdriver, $20,000 on a hammer, do you? Exactly. That's where all that money is funneled. It goes into these Black Ops, SAPs, Special Access.
It's been years since I've seen that movie, but
Yeah, but you remember that?
kind of.
It doesn't matter. The point is, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about.
How does, I don't want to cut you off, but how does a program like that get funded?
I will give you generalities. I can get very specific in a closed session, but misappropriation of funds and
Does that mean
self-fund.
that there is money in the budget that is said to go to a program, but it doesn't, and it goes to something else?
Yes, I have specific knowledge of that. Yep.
Do you think U.S. corporations are overcharging for certain tech they're selling to the U.S. government, and that additional money is going to programs?
Correct, through something called IRAD.
Okay.
IRAD.
Satellite imagery. Let's talk
You've
about
never
satellite.
heard of that?
I have not heard of IRAD.
I have not either.
You haven't either. Okay. If you guys, one of you out there knows what IRAD is, drop it in the comments and let us know. In the meantime,
Imagery. We have satellites all over the place, some that we're aware of and many that we're not aware of, right? We're taking pictures of everything at every point and second. Mr. Grush, are you aware, do you have direct knowledge, or have you talked to people with direct knowledge that there are satellite imagery of these events?
That was one of my primary tasks at NGA, since we process, exploit, and disseminate that kind of information. I've seen multiple cases, some of which, to my understanding, and of course, I left NGA in April, so that's my information cutoff date. But I personally reviewed both what we call overhead collection and from other strategic and tactical platforms that I could not even explain prosaically. And I have a degree in physics, by the way, as well.
Independent research and development.
Okay. IRAD, Independent Research and Development. Like Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works.
Probably
stuff like
DARPA.
that. Yeah, DARPA, things like this, right? If you're not familiar with Skunk Works, that's the division of Lockheed Martin that created some of the greatest technological advancements we've seen, such as the SR-71 Blackbird, et cetera, et cetera. Now think about what he just said. I have trouble explaining these programs in a very detailed and efficient manner, and I have a degree in physics. This is a man who knows what he's talking about, obviously extremely intelligent. Physics is hard, dude. Like, physics is like, what? And he goes, it's kind of complicated. It's a little hard for me to explain.
And I am aware that you guys have not seen these reports, unfortunately, and I don't know why.
Do you have direct knowledge, or you had spoken to people with direct knowledge that this imagery applies to crash sites, crash imagery?
I can't discuss that in an open session.
Okay. Do you have any information that the U.S. government is involved in a disinformation campaign to deny the existence of certain UAPs?
I can't go beyond what I've already stated publicly in my News Nation interview because it touches other sensitivities.
Okay. I'll yield the balance of my time back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, He didn't say no.
Mm-hmm.
On none of those, like there wasn't a single question. He went, no, that's not happening. It's either I can't publicly say, which tells you I could tell you a lot, but I can't right now. And well, I can't exactly get into that. I mean, pretty blatant yes to me, but
Yeah.
but he can't give details. And again, this is a man who is extremely concerned about security, the security of our nation. That's
Yeah.
the whole reason that he's even doing this. All right, so our next clip is continues right now. It is Representative Fox, apparently with 2 X's, not triple X.
Nope.
That's not quite that fun. Just 2 X's. Fox, Republican from North Carolina.
Ms. Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here today. Mr. Garouche, in your sworn testimony, you state that the United States government has retrieved supposedly extraterrestrial spacecraft and other UAP-related artifacts. You go so far as to state that the U.S. is in possession of, quote, non-human spacecraft, end quote, and that some of these artifacts have circulated with defense contractors. Several other former military and intelligence officials have come forward with similar allegations, albeit in non-public settings. However, Dr. Shawn Kirkpatrick, the director of AARO, previously testified before Congress that there has been, and I quote, no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity or of, quote, off-world technology brought to the attention of the office. To your knowledge, is that statement correct?
It's not accurate. I believe Dr. Kirkpatrick mentioned he had about 30 individuals that have come to Arrow thus far. A few of those individuals have also come to Arrow that I also interviewed,
Okay.
and I know what they provided Dr. Kirkpatrick and their team.
Okay,
I was able to evaluate
okay,
that information.
I need to go on.
Yeah. So, in other words, the man lied to you.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why anyone at this point is surprised that people lie to Congress. Apparently, the only people that matters for are people associated with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's the only. Anyone else apparently can absolutely blatantly lie to Congress, Fauci, and get away with it. I'm that fan. All right, so our next clip is again Burchett from Tennessee, and it's the 11902 to 12416.
With that, I yield my 5 minutes to Mr. Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to direct this, I believe, to Mr. Grush, but if any of you all feel like you need to jump in, just jump right in. We're good. Has the U.S. government become aware of actual evidence of extraterrestrial, otherwise unexplained forms of intelligence? And if so, when do you think this first occurred?
That's a good question.
I like to use the term non-human. I don't like to denote origin. Keeps the aperture open, both scientifically. Certainly, like I've discussed publicly previously in 1930s.
Okay. Can you give me the names and titles of the people with direct firsthand knowledge and access to some of this crash retrieval, some of these crash retrieval programs, and maybe which facilities, military bases that the recovered material would be in? And I know a lot of Congress talked about we're going to go to Area 51 and, and there's nothing there anymore anyway. Right. It's just, and we move like a glacier. And as soon as we announce it, I'm sure the moving vans would pull up, but please.
I can't discuss that publicly, but I did provide that information both to the Intel committees and the Inspector General.
And we could get that in the SCIF if we were allowed to get in a SCIF with you. Would that be probably what you would think?
Sure, if you had the appropriate accesses, yeah.
What special access programs cover this information, and how is it possible that they have evaded oversight for so long?
I do know the names. Once again, I can't discuss that publicly and how they've evaded oversight. In a closed setting, I can tell you the specific tradecraft used.
All right. When do you think those programs began, and who authorized them?
I do know a lot of that information, but that's something I can't discuss publicly because of
All right.
sensitivities.
If any of y'all want to jump in on any of this, you're more than welcome to. What level of security clearance is required to fully access these programs?
Well, anybody who has.
And I say that because myself, Representative Gates and Representative Luna were basically turned away at one point at Eglin.
Isn't
So
that
please
crazy?
go right ahead.
Think about that.
Members of Congress, people that are supposed to
National
represent we
Defense
the people.
Oversight. Yeah, this isn't, Marjorie Taylor Greene
No,
who decided, with a hair upper to go to Area 51 or something like that, right? These are members of the literal committee responsible for our national security, and they were turned away.
yeah.
That should concern everyone.
Certainly difference between member access and say somebody like me, but anybody who has a TSSCI clearance and meets the eligibility criteria, the access adjudicative authority should be able to grant you access.
Ms. Burchett, if you'll yield, so just to put a fine point on that, there's nothing that you're aware of that's above special access program classification.
It's a misnomer that there's anything actually above top secret. Executive Order 13526 delineates the classification levels.
Right. But I draw a point on that because we can have access to those programs. And so the notion that we're not being given that access sort of defies our typical muscle memory here in Congress. Thank you, Mr. Burchett. I'll yield back to you.
Yeah. In other words, we have the necessary clearance, the one you say we need, and we're being told no.
Mm-hmm.
So who's really in charge?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Along those lines, Title 10, you may not know this or not, but Title 10 and Title 50 authorization, they seem to say they're inefficient. So who gets to decide this, in your opinion, in the past?
It's a group of career senior executive officials.
There it is.
Uh-huh.
A group of career senior executive officials. In other words, the deep state.
Yep.
That's when people get confused when Donald Trump, for example, or other people start talking about deep state, right? All we're talking about are unelected bureaucrats that make decisions that should be reserved for Congress, the president, or the SCOTUS.
And Congress needs to stop giving up their authority to those people too. That's
Exactly.
another problem.
Yes. And that is the root of the problem. Our Congress has slowly, over time, carved out little bits of its power and handed it over here, over there, over here.
Because they don't want to be blamed.
They don't want to be blamed. They don't want the responsibility.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's too much work. God forbid you should have to actually do something for $174,000 a year, other than sit there and ask questions or vote yay or nay, and campaign every other year. Give me a break.
Okay, are they government officials?
Both
Or
in and out.
do what?
Both in and out of government, and that's about as far
I
as I
got
can
you.
go there.
All right, well,
Government and NGOs, private corporations, probably some like equity or investment firms, BlackRock, stuff like that.
that leads to my next question. Which private corporations are directly involved in this program? How much taxpayer money has been invested in these programs, to your knowledge? I mean, we know we audit the Pentagon every year, and I've been here
which it
5
never
years and they
passes.
failed the dadgum thing every year.
Yeah.
They lose over $1 billion a year, we think, and I was told Department of Defense maybe 60% of their assets are unaccounted for, whatever the heck that means. In the public sector, you go to jail for that kind of crap.
Thank you.
So tell me.
Yeah, I know when I'm a dollar off of my DTS travel voucher, I get hammered, but it seems like it doesn't work the other way.
If you
right?
sell over
Yeah.
if you sell over $600 worth of stuff on eBay, now you get a call from the IRS. So please, what
All those
corporation?
agents.
Yeah,
that
I don't know
they
these specific
hired.
What's that?
All those agents that Biden hired.
Yeah. 87,000 IRS agents. Yeah, just in case you wanted to start a small business and sell, crocheted blankets or quilts or collectibles. or I was going to say something stupid, but we're just going to move on.
Metrics towards the end of your question, the specific corporations I did provide to the committees in specific divisions, and I spent 11 and a half hours with both Intel committees. So.
Okay, has there been an active U.S. government disinformation campaign to deny the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena? And if so, why?
I can't go beyond what I've already espoused publicly about that.
Yes, the answer is yes. He said yes already. As to why as he said, he's limited on what he can say publicly.
But
go ahead.
But he still said a lot.
Oh yeah, he said, don't get me wrong, he is dropping bomb after bomb after bombshell.
Yeah.
But he still has to be very careful.
Yeah.
Because he took certain oaths and signed certain paperwork and non-disclosure agreements, things like that. They're already trying to come after him. If he violates a clearance or something like that, look at Trump, dude. He was president.
Yep.
And they're saying, oh, no, right? But it's okay for Biden.
What you said to get it to the record. Ask him what that is so you can get it into the congressional record.
Okay, I've been told to ask you what that is and how to get it in the record.
What
have you stated publicly in your interviews for the congressional record?
If you reference my News Nation interview and I talk about a multi-decade, campaign to disenfranchise public interest, basically. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so Grush, News Nation interview, I recommend it. Highly recommend it. But not yet. Finish watching this video first.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I yield back negative 21 seconds.
Thank you. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez?
Yes. Yes, he did. Shawn forced us to listen to AOC.
Yeah.
I am never, ever going to forgive you for that. No, I'm just kidding. All right, here we go. Let's see what off-the-wall stuff she says.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for coming here today. I do concur with the ranking member as well as several other members here on this committee that this is a committee for whistleblowers and for the protection of whistleblowers as well. So we understand what you're putting on the table here and what you're putting on the line here, and we thank you for that. Mr. Grush, you sat on the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Task Force created in the 2020 NDAA, correct?
Yes.
There have been some things that have been mentioned here during this hearing that I wanted to pick up on. Mr. Graves, you mentioned specifically during the answers to one of your questions, you named Boeing contractors being engaged in an incident regarding this red cube about a football field wide. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the interaction, or Mr. Grush, either of you, the interactions between defense contractor companies and any UAP-related programs or activities.
So I'll just say that the information about the contractor himself were provided by a witness, and I have no particular detail in that relationship.
Mr. Grush.
The kind of general unclassed wave tops, certainly the contractors, are the metal benders, so to speak, they're the ones actually doing specific performance on government contracts.
Are they required to issue any disclosure regarding UAP sightings, or do they engage in any reporting around this?
In terms of the contractors,
Yes.
not that I'm aware of.
They do not. Okay. Now, when it comes to notification that you had mentioned about IRAD programs, we have seen defense contractors abuse their contracts before through this committee. I have seen it personally, and I have also seen the notification requirements to Congress abused. I am wondering, one of the loopholes that we see in the law is that there is, at least from my vantage point, is that depending on what we're seeing, is that there are no actual definitions or requirements for notification. What methods of notification did you observe? Like when they say they notified Congress, how did they do that? Do you have insight into that?
For certain IRAD activities, I can only think of ones conventional in nature. Sometimes they flow through certain, I'll just say SAP programs that have cognizant authority over the Air Force or something. And those are congressionally reported compartments, but IRAD is literally internal to the contractor. So as long as it's money, either profits, private investment, et cetera.
And
They can do whatever they want.
To put a
Yeah.
finer point on it, when there is a requirement for any agency or company to notify, or any agency to notify Congress, do they contact the chairman of a committee? Do they get them on the phone specifically? Is this through an email to hypothetically a dead email box?
That's actually a really good question. Damn it! I hate when you do this. No,
That's why
I'm
I
just kidding.
added it. It was good.
You're really good about that. He generally doesn't purposefully throw clips in to trigger me, although occasionally
I have a couple times.
Yeah, he gets entertainment out of it, which is fine. I'm okay being your jester.
A lot of it comes through what they call the PPR, periodic program review process. If it's a SAP or controlled access program equity, and then those go to the specific committees, whether it be the SAS, CASC, HISI.
Thank you. I apologize. I just, my time is limited. Mr. Graves, one of your main concerns is that the FAA currently does not have an official process to receive reports of UAP from pilots or others, correct?
Correct.
And in your experience, what data should the Aero program prioritize for potential collection? We have, location, date, time, but are there other specific?
Okay, it continues on. Our next clip, because we are actually at the end of the clip. Okay. The next clip is representative. We're almost done. Just so you guys know, we're almost done. A couple more clips, and that's it. Our next one is Burlinson. Republican from Missouri, 134-27. 134.
Subcommittee hearing. And then we go to Mr. Burleson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you guys coming out today, testifying. Look, I've been here for 6 months, and I'm pretty skeptical. I don't trust anything in this town. And
good plan.
And so, I think that's because I'm from Missouri. You've got to show me, right? With that being said, there's been a lot of things that have been said in the public, Mr. Grush, and so I want to get down to, if we can, some specifics, right? So, at one point you had said that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity. And I got
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Yeah.
Both UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, they've gotten injured in interactions with these UAPs and by personnel employed by the federal government. Correct? I heard that right.
You did.
So there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed myself and my wife was very disturbing.
Okay. One of my constituents actually sent this next question, and I figured I'd ask it since I had the same thought. You've said that the U.S. has intact spacecraft. You said that the government has alien bodies or alien species. Have you seen the spacecraft?
I have to be careful to describe what I've seen firsthand and not in this environment, but I could answer that question behind closed doors. Yeah.
And have you seen any of the bodies?
It was not a no. Bear in mind, if he hadn't, it would have been a very simple, no, I have not, but I have received multiple eyewitness reports.
Yeah.
No, it was, I have to be careful what I say. That's as close to yes as he can say in open forum. I mean, this man has seen things.
That's some question behind closed doors. Yeah.
And have you seen any of the bodies?
That's something I've not witnessed myself.
Okay.
There you go.
And
See, on the spacecraft, he
Yeah.
could have easily said, that's something I have not witnessed myself. He didn't say that.
so with that being said, and the other statement that has been made that was intriguing to me and it's intriguing because my view has been that we are billions of light years away from any other system. And the concept that an alien species that's technologically advanced enough to travel billions of light years gets here and somehow is incompetent enough to not survive Earth or crashes is something that I find a little bit far-fetched. And with that being said, you have mentioned that there's interdimensional potential. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, to answer your first question, and I'm here as a fact witness and expert, but I will give you a theoretical framework, at least to work off, to kind of espouse crashes, regardless of your level of sentience, right? Planes crash, cars crash, n number of sorties, however high, a small percentage are going to end in mission failure, if you will, as we say in the Air Force. And then in terms of multidimensionality, that kind of thing, the frame.
What he said in, you run all these from blah, 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 is shit happens. It happens. Mistakes are made. People make mistakes. Equipment fails. Failures happen.
Framework that I'm familiar with, for example, is something called the holographic principle. It derives itself from general relativity and quantum mechanics, and that is, if you want to imagine a 3D object such as yourself casting a shadow onto a 2D surface, that's the holographic principle. So you can be projected, quasi-projected from higher dimensional space to lower dimensional. It's a scientific trope that you can actually cross, literally, as far as I understand, but there's probably guys with PhDs that we could probably argue about that.
But you have not seen any documentation that that's what's occurring.
Only a theoretical framework discussion. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Occam's razor is that these aircraft, have they been identified that they are being produced by domestic, military and contractors? Is there any evidence that that's what's being recovered?
Not to my knowledge. Plus, the recoveries predate a lot of our advanced programs that I previously am witting of. So,
reverse engineering. Yeah. We've heard of that. We heard that term at the beginning where he said he has direct knowledge of reverse engineering. Allegedly, now this part I don't know, but allegedly the SR-71 program itself was reverse engineered. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But this guy is extremely credible, in my opinion. Extremely credible.
Would it be safe to say that there could be a scenario today where you have an aircraft that crashes and because it's been involved in one program from one federal agency, and the agency that retrieves it is not aware of that program, and to them it appears alien in origin?
I mean, that's a hypothetical situation. I'm not aware of any historical situation that would match that you described. So
you're not aware? It has not happened that you're aware of?
That I'm aware of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I mean, that's a trick question, really, because if you say, "Oh no, it's never happened," well, how would you know? You can't. You're not omniscient.
True.
Right? But he can definitely say, to my knowledge, I have seen zero evidence that this has happened. Anyway, our last clip for you guys, we go right into it, and it's from our good buddy Gates from Florida. And this is where we're going to end the clip. And he's done. Going to 142.45.
Several months ago, my office received a protected disclosure from Eglin Air Force Base indicating that there was a UAP incident that required my attention. I sought a briefing regarding that episode and brought with me Congressman Burchett and Congresswoman Luna. We asked to see any of the evidence that had been taken by flight crew in this endeavor and to observe any radar signature as well as to meet with the flight crew. we were not afforded access to all of the flight crew. And initially, we were not afforded access to images and to radar. Thereafter, we had a bit of a discussion about how authorities flow in the United States of America, and we did see the image. And we did meet with one member of the flight crew who took the image. The image was of something that I am not able to attach to any human capability, either from the United States or from any of our adversaries. And I'm somewhat informed on the matter, having served on the Armed Services Committee for 7 years, having served on the committee that oversees DARPA and advanced technologies for several years.
Yeah.
When we spoke with the flight crew, and when he showed us the photo that he'd taken, I asked why the video wasn't engaged, why we didn't have a FLIR system that worked. Here's what he said. They were out on a test mission that day over the Gulf of Mexico. And when you're on a test mission, you're supposed to have clear airspace. Not supposed to be anything that shows up. And they saw a sequence of 4 craft in a clear diamond formation for which there is a radar sequence that I alone have observed in the United States Congress. One of the pilots goes to check out that diamond formation and sees a large floating, what I can only describe as an orb. Again, like I said, not of any human capability that I'm aware of. And when he approached, he said that his radar went down. He said that his FLIR system malfunctioned and that he had to manually take this image from one of the lenses, and it was not automated in collection as you would typically see in a test mission. So I guess I'll start with Commander Fravor. How should we think about the fact that this craft that was approached by our pilot had the capability of disarming a number of the sensor and collection systems on that craft?
Well, I think this goes to that national security side, and you can go back through history of things showing up at certain areas and disabling our capabilities, which is disheartening. And for us, I mean, like I said, it completely disabled the radar on the aircraft when it tried to do it. And the only way we could see it is passively, which is how he got that image. So I think that's a concern on what are these doing, not only how do they operate, but their capabilities inside to do things like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. I really want to try to keep this under the 2-hour mark. So, look, in my opinion, this was extremely revealing. It told us a hell of a lot of information. And I can't wait for the Senate one.
I'll look into it.
Yeah, I'd like that to be the next breakdown we do, as a matter of fact. But
I will see what I can find.
yeah, see what you can find and see, what your schedule's like coming up. And we'll be with you guys again very, very soon. As always, hey, we really appreciate the time that you spend with us. And I'm sure the viewers do as well, really appreciate the time that you spend breaking these down, because they are very enlightening.
Yeah.
Let's face it, our government is in the business of hiding things from the people.
Yeah.
And that, above all else, needs to change. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for joining us. We'll see you again real soon. God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America, even with the deep state being busy like this. Have a great evening.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Shawn Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.